Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are filming once again in Bamberg, but we're going to return to Munich this time and we're going to have a taste of another one of the beers from the famous traditional Munich breweries. And I'm in Germany in October. It felt a little bit strange to be in one of the most famous beer cities in the world and not review an Oktoberfest beer. And this is one that you don't often see actually outside of Germany. So I saw this in the Getränkemarkt and I thought, you know, I have to have a review of one of these ones. So yeah, so for this one we're going to go to Augustiner Bräu and we're having a taste of their Oktoberfest beer. As I said, you don't normally come across this one outside of Germany. Normally it's like the Paulaner and the Löwenbräu and things like that you can find, but I've never actually come across this one before. So this one had to be reviewed, but it comes in at 6.3% and it is an Oktoberfest Märzen as you would expect. So looking forward to trying this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. The other beers that I've reviewed from Augustiner I have enjoyed very, very much, so really looking forward to trying this one. So as always, I'm looking forward to it and hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All of the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Augustiner before. No doubt I will add some more in the near future, although I'm not sure how many more beers they still have that I can review, but hopefully I can do more. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the German beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Augustiner then. So the history of Augustiner goes back to the year 1294 when the Augustinian monastery was founded in Heberfeld next to the Neuhausergasse in Munich. So there's apparently documentary proof that beer was produced within the walls of this building in 1328, and the brewing rights were granted by the order of the Bishop of Freising. But that year there was a huge fire in Munich that destroyed a large part of the city, but the monastery is known to have survived. So the year 1328 is considered to be the foundation day of the Augustiner Brewery, which actually makes it the oldest of the traditional Munich breweries. So despite the secularization in 1803 that was imposed by Napoleon, and this of course resulted in many of the Bavarian monasteries becoming state-owned, beer did continue to be brewed at the monastery, and the beer continued to be sold in the tavern of the brewery, and the brewery also retained its brewing and selling rights as well. But the Bavarian prince apparently had given the monks the right to brew beer, and then later exempted them from any taxes because of how high the quality of this beer was. But after the takeover of the monastery by the state and the departure of the Brotherhood, the brewery was soon denationalised and moved to number 275 Neuhauserstrasse in 1817, and apparently this is number 27 in Munich's central pedestrian district today. But the company only stayed there until 1885 when the Stammhaus was turned into a restaurant. The Stammhaus remains a restaurant until this day, and apparently it was renovated by the famous German architect Emanuel von Seidel at the beginning of the 19th century. So the brewery was originally privatised by Anton and Teresa Wagner, who bought the company back in 1829, and in 1858 the running of the brewery was taken over by Josef Wagner, and the brewery began to majorly prosper, and this is why his initials can usually be seen on the bottle caps and the top labels and things like that. But since 1885 the brewery has been known as Kellerreal at the Lagerberger Strasse, and today this is number 31 to 35, and this is near their brew pub or tavern, however you want to call it, the Bräustubel. But after Josef's death in 1900, his sons Richard and Max ran the brewery, and in 1941 the brewery was taken over by Richard's son Rudolf, and he converted the brewery into a limited partnership company. But the brewery building was very badly damaged in 1941 as a result of the Allied bombing raids, but it was rebuilt soon after the end of the war. But Rudolf Wagner increased the annual production of the brewery to 300,000 hectolitres, and he also resisted many takeover bids. But Rudolf Wagner died in 1981 without leaving a will in in testament, and this meant that the brewery was left to a community of heirs, which consisted of his cousin Edith Haberland Wagner and 5 others, most of whom actually lived over in North America. But Edith took over 50% of the shares in the brewery, and then the management of the brewery shops and restaurants was taken over by Ferdinand Schmidt and Karl Grossman. But upon the advice of Ferdinand Schmidt, Edith Wagner actually converted the company into a charitable organisation which was called the Edith Haberland Wagner Stiftung, which today owns 51% of the brewery shares, and this was done to basically preserve the kind of independence of the company, if you like, and this was to stop it being taken over by some of the larger brewing groups and things. You know, I would guess the likes of Paulaner, the Paulaner Hackab Shore group, of course, may well have been eyeing up Augustiner at that time, but this was a really, really cool move to basically preserve the independence of the Augustiner brand. And I guess this is why, even for such a big brewery, it can sometimes be quite difficult to find the Augustiner beers outside of Germany. But you know, my favourite beers that I've had from these guys, probably the Helles beer is really nice, the Dunkel, the Maximator, you know, the Helles, the Dunkel and the Doppelbock, of course, are probably my favourite beers that you can get from these guys. But yeah, I've reviewed, if I remember right, I've reviewed the Lager beer Hell, the Edelstoff, I think I've reviewed the Weiss beer for you as well, now the Oktoberfest, the Maximator and the Dunkel. I think it's only the Hellerbock that I've not actually reviewed for you, so maybe that's one that I can do at some point in the future. But I just thought, when I was in Bamberg, it's still October, it's the 31st of October today, so right at the very end, I thought, you know, I have to review an Oktoberfest beer for you in Germany on the channel at some point. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Augustiner Bräu just now. If you want to learn a little bit more, check out the brewery website in the description below, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and all these kind of things. But yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself. So yeah, basically the story with Oktoberfest was that one of the princesses of Bavaria, if I'm remembering the titles right, because the German titles are different from the British ones from what I remember, but the one of the princesses got married, so the king decided, or the duke decided, we're going to throw a big party for this, and it's just basically been repeated each year, and that is what is now known as Oktoberfest. But yeah, there you can see the little top label on this one. It's nice. I always love that about German beers, and there you can see the Augustiner bottle cap on this one. I'm not sure if it has JW in there for Wagner. It doesn't have it on this one, but usually, as I say, most of these beers do have JW on them for their famous owner. But as I said, this one is a 6.3% Märzen beer, Oktoberfest Märzen, and yeah, you can see front of this one, this is a sort of interpretation of the 1926 edition of the Oktoberfest. It would have been cool to be there and see that back in the day. We need to invent time travel to go and see some of these really cool things. But yeah, without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting. I'm very, very curious to see how this one turns out. Yeah, nice little bit of smoke on the opening there, and we'll get it out and into the glass, into my lovely Spezial mug, my Spezial baby I should say. But yeah, this one actually smells quite sweet when you bring it out of the bottle. Just watch we don't get too much of a head on this one, so that we can fit the full thing in. You don't want to be too aggressive in these pours with the beers. Ah no, I think I've got this. There we go. Beautiful. Well done me. So yeah, with this one you can see, and as you would expect, I always thought a Märzen is normally a little bit lighter than this, but I guess the Munich Märzens, they can be a little bit lighter in colour, and usually they're just kind of slightly stronger lager beers if you like. But yeah, this one, as I say, comes in at 6.3%. You can see it's poured a beautiful kind of crystal clear golden straw colour. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there, the dimples obviously are throwing it off a little bit, but you can see that this one has an absolutely beautiful clear golden straw clarity to it. There's a solid 2 fingers of a frothy white head there, although around the edges it is a little bit more bumpy, but in the centre it is very, very frothy. Quite a few big bubbles sticking towards the bottom of the glass there, but going up towards the bottom of that head. But overall, looks very, very nice, and as I say, I think this, I've got a feeling this one might be a little bit lighter in colour compared to the other Märzens that you're going to get from the likes of Hackab Shore or Löwenbräu and things like this. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. Yeah, so with this beer, nice little bit of a bready presence to it. yeah, good bit of bready presence. It's got a little bit more of a kind of yeasty quality to it as well, I think. There's a little bit of a yeasty note coming out of this one. But yeah, a little bit of biscuit, kind of some grainy notes in there too. I mean, it's very, very simple in terms of its aroma, I think. To me, this one, normally the Märzens, from what I understood, they're meant to be a little bit more caramelly and a little bit more biscuity, but the Oktoberfest beers are always a little bit stronger in terms of alcohol and things like that, you know. I think the ones that you actually drink at the festival feel like are around 8% or something like this, so you get very drunk very quickly. But yeah, with this one, you know, pretty much lovely, nice, doughy, yeasty, kind of bready sort of thing to this beer. Those typical Munich malts, I'm guessing. A little bit of a biscuity sweetness, I think. And you're also getting some of these typical German noble hop elements to the beers. A little bit of that sweeter earthiness, some kind of grassy floral aromaticity in there as well. And a little bit of a kind of lemony citrus. There's maybe a little touch of a slightly peary ester or something in there too, an appley sort of peary orchardy type ester. But you know, again, this beer style isn't one that you expect too much of in terms of the aroma. And normally, the German beers I find are, generally compared to some others, they're quite conservative when it comes to their aroma. It's always the flavour, I think, with these traditional German beers where they really start to shine. But as I always say, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. But let's have a taste of this one then. So this one is the Augustiner Bräu Oktoberfest beer. Filming this one for you in Bamberg in Franconia, northern Bavaria in Germany. My first Oktoberfest review for you actually filmed here in Germany. So let's get stuck into this one then. Slange, Skål, Prost. Yeah, I mean, that wasn't quite what I expected. I have to say that about this beer. It's definitely more of a kind of bready lager, to be honest with you. It is more like a kind of bready lager, Pilsner type beer, something like that. Yeah, I mean, the first thing you're going to notice about this beer is how easy it is to drink. It really, it's a very nice, very clean beer, this one. I'll definitely say that about it. It's just not what I expected. I expected it to be a little bit more, I expected it to be a little bit more sweet, if that makes sense, because normally these Märzen beers are a little bit, they've got a little bit more of a kind of caramelly sweetness into them, and that's because they're slightly higher in alcohol. This is 6.3%, and I read that up until about 2015, this beer was simply 6% ABV. But yeah, I will say that this one isn't quite what I expected. So yeah, with this beer then, nice sort of bready base to it. It actually does remind me of the Edelstoff a little bit. It does. I think this one does. For some reason in my mind, I'm just thinking this reminds me of the Edelstoff. But yeah, with this beer, you can feel there's that nice kind of smooth German malt base there. That blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that, there's a little bit of a slightly thicker kind of bready note, and in the middle of your palate, there's a little bit of that biscuity sweetness. It's almost like the McVitie's digestives that we would eat back home in Scotland. I'm not sure if you actually get those in Germany or indeed in Sweden, where I film most of my reviews, but it really reminds me of that sort of biscuity or cookie kind of note that the Americans would or as the Americans would describe it. But yeah, I like how this one goes together. The thing, as I say, the thing that sort of stands out to me about this beer is just how clean it is. It really is a very kind of clean, easy drinking beer, and I like that about it. It really does remind me of their Edelstoff, though, their sort of export lager beer that they have. It's not too dissimilar to that from what I remember, although I think it might be a little bit more oily with that kind of biscuity flavour that it has. But yeah, it's a nice enough beer, this one. You could easily session a few of these, which is of course the idea at Oktoberfest. But in terms of the Märzen, when it's a Märzen, I always remember the Märzens being a little bit heavier in their malt base. This one's very clean and easy drinking, but I always remember the Märzen as being a little bit heavier in terms of the malt base and things like that, and a little bit more caramelly and sweet too. It definitely has the sweetness level, but I just remember them being a bit heavier in the malt base. On the back corners of the palate then you get a little bit of that earthiness that you expect of the German noble hops. As you come further forward along the sides of your tongue, it smooths out a little bit. You get a little bit of a spicy floral note at the front corners of your palate, then round the very front curve of the tongue it's just a little bit lighter and grassy there, and of course behind the front curve of the palate, that's usually where you get these nice juicy fruity esters coming out of the beer. And for me, this one, I think it's interesting. Yeah, mainly it's a sort of that, you know, lemony, typical grassy ester sort of thing that you would get from the noble hops in this one. This beer isn't one of the more bitter ones you're going to come across, but at the same time it does feel pretty fresh actually, and I do like that about this. But yeah, it's that lemony, grassy sort of citrusy note around the front corners of the palate, or the front curve of your palate rather I should say, and then behind the front curve of the tongue you get a little bit of a there is a little touch of a slightly appley, peary sort of thing to this one, but that's mainly minimal. It is quite a hoppy, grassy sort of citrusy ester that you get out of this one, but overall a really, really nice beer. So if you get the chance to try this, have a go at it. It's a very clean lager beer, this one. As I say, I'm not sure how well this one would really fit into the Märzen category, because I don't think it's quite, it just doesn't feel big enough in terms of its malt base for me, but it definitely has some of the sweetness and it's a little bit heavier in alcohol. But overall, as a beer, it's a nice kind of easy drinking sort of thing. You know, to me it just kind of comes across as a very sort of strong lager beer, or strong sort of Munich Helles beer. That's the sort of impression I have of this one. In terms of the mouthfeel, mid-bodied, carbonation is very, very smooth I think in this one. Good little bit of oily character to the mouthfeel in this beer as well. There's a little bit of hoppy bitterness. Again, I think it's around sort of 30 IBUs or something like that, maybe 35. It's not going to blow your head off in terms of bitterness anyway. Nice smoothness to the malt base, a little bit of sweetness. It gets a little bit sweeter the further into the aftertaste you go. And there is a little bit of a fruity character to this one as well. But overall, a really nice beer, this one. As I say, not too sure how this one fits into the Märzen category. I don't think it's quite as close to what a Märzen should be as in comparison to some of the other ones. But in terms of like a slightly stronger lager beer, it does remind me of the Edelstoff, like a slightly stronger version of the Edelstoff. But to me, nice beer, certainly very, very drinkable, and that's what you would want at Oktoberfest. Is it my favourite beer that I've had from Augustiner Bräu? I don't think so, you know, probably the Dunkel, the Maximator or the Helles probably fit into those, but they're all very different styles, it just depends on what you quite fancy, but those three are probably my favourite that I've reviewed from Augustiner so far. But yeah, really nice beer this one, but just wasn't quite what I was expecting, I have to say. But a very, you know, it's a solid enough beer. There's nothing particularly wrong with it, but as I say, just not quite what I expected from this one. But have a go at it for yourselves and see what you think. And it's been cool to review an Oktoberfest beer for you here in Bamberg in Germany, which is one of the most famous beer cities around. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. So this one was the Oktoberfest beer from Augustiner Bräu in Munich in Bavaria here in Germany. A nice sort of clean, easy drinking lager beer, this one. Not sure how much it fits the Märzen category right enough, but still a nice easy drinking lager. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Augustiner Bräu as well. Do check out my other reviews from them. Hopefully I can review the Hellebuck for you at some time soon. Make sure you check out my social media, and I will catch you guys very soon. This was the Oktoberfest beer from Augustiner Bräu in Munich, in Bavaria rather, in southern Germany. Lovely to try this beer, and I hope you guys enjoyed my take on it. Until the next time, slanted just now, and I will catch you guys very soon. Skål.